Yeah, safe to say these are about to be the craziest playoff rankings we've ever gotten. In the final season of the 4-team playoff, you couldn't have asked for a more difficult decision for the playoff committee. As conference championship weekend comes to an end, there are legitimately 5 to 6 teams who are more than deserving of being one of the 4 playoff teams. This past week, I posted a video talking about a bunch of scenarios and what we could potentially see happen this weekend. Well, safe to say, the craziest scenario actually happened, and I have no idea what the playoff committee is going to do. Washington defeated Oregon, Michigan defeated Iowa, Florida State defeated Louisville, Alabama defeated Georgia, and Texas defeated Oklahoma State. As of right now, I think there are honestly only 2 guarantees to reach the playoff. I think Michigan is going to be a guarantee, as they're probably going to be the 1 seed, and I think Washington is the other guarantee, as they're going to be the 2 seed as well. So as of right now, that leaves the 3 and the 4 seed completely up for grabs, and I have no idea who's going to get those bids. Earlier today, I posted a video talking about Texas and how I thought they deserved to be in. I had to take that video down because, copyright is a stupid thing. But in that video, I talked about Texas being more than deserving of being a playoff team, regardless of what happened the rest of the way. They finished the season 12-1, and they have arguably one of the biggest wins of the entire season, as they went on the road and knocked off Alabama earlier in the year. Because of their great season and having that massive head-to-head win, I think Texas is more than deserving of being one of those teams. Then you look at Alabama, and if you want a case for a better win than that Texas one, I think Alabama just picked it up. Alabama just took down the number 1 team in the country, giving Georgia their first loss in 29 games. I mean, that is by far the best win of the entire season, and Alabama is now the SEC champion. Although that's the most impressive victory of the season, do you give them the edge over Texas despite losing to the Longhorns? I'm not exactly certain, but if I were the one picking the 4 teams, I would be easily taking Texas and Alabama inside my top 4, and the reason is because I'm leaving Florida State out. Florida State did beat Louisville 16-6, but if you watch that game, that might have been one of the ugliest games I've ever seen in my entire life watching college football. Now, before I get into the game, I will give Florida State their flowers. This was probably one of the greatest defensive performances, honestly, I've seen in quite some time. They held Louisville to only 6 points, 10 first downs, and 188 yards of total offense. Now, of course, that's because this is one of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen. Jack Plummer completed 14 of 36 passes for only 100 yards. It's one of the worst quarterback performances, honestly, I can remember in quite some time as well. So Louisville didn't have any sort of offense at all, but again, Florida State's defense was legit, and they were making things impossible for Louisville in this one. But man, did Florida State's offense look abysmal. Third string quarterback Brock Glenn got the start, and he completed only 8 passes and threw for 55 yards. If it wasn't for one 70-yard run by Florida State, the offense didn't really do anything the rest of the way. I mean, for the game, they did have only 219 yards of total offense, so if you take out that 70-yard run, that's only 150 yards of offense for the entire game. I know they're not going to have their third string quarterback when they play in the playoff game, but I don't think having their backup quarterback is going to be much better. Florida State just has not looked good these last couple of games without Jordan Travis. And honestly, Florida State hasn't looked good in over a month if you take out that North Alabama game. I've talked about this at length in numerous videos, so a lot of you probably already know where I stand with this. I don't care if you finish the season undefeated and you win your conference. For me personally, I think the playoff should be who the current 4 best teams are, and there is no way, there's no reality, there is no argument that you can give me that Florida State is currently one of the top 4 teams in all of college football. Actually, maybe there is a slight argument just because of how good Florida State's defense looked, so if you put them against Michigan or Washington, maybe their defense is going to be able to hang around in this game. But I just don't know how you could put Florida State in over Alabama or Texas. The College Football Playoff Committee has said numerous times that the whole purpose of this is to get the 4 best teams in. Well, if that's the case, the decision should be pretty easy. Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Texas. Hell, I even think you can make the case for Georgia being a potential playoff team before you even talk about Florida State. This is a team that just lost for the first time in 3 years, and they went head to head with arguably a top 3 to 4 team in the country. Plus, it was a 3-point loss, so honestly, I think Georgia has a legitimate case as well. I know they're likely not going to get in because they lost the SEC title game, but I do think Georgia is the top 4 team in the country at the moment. But man, the playoff committee is going to have to make quite the decision tomorrow. Ever since the playoffs started, there hasn't really been any controversy in these final rankings. Sure, there's been maybe 1 or 2 years where there was a 5th team just hanging around, and there were a few question marks in regards to who would get that final spot, but like I said, there are legitimately 3 to 4 teams who you could give the 3rd and the 4th seed to. If I were to guess, I think the playoff committee is going to go safe and have Florida State in there. So if you had Michigan and Washington, that leaves one final spot between Texas and Alabama. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama gets the edge, but I don't know how you can keep Texas out. They finished with the same record as Alabama, and they won the head-to-head matchup back in September. If those head-to-head matchups don't even matter, then what really is the point of playing any of these big games? I'll tell you, there is none. So if the playoff committee truly wants us to believe that head-to-head matchups matter, then Texas is going to be in. If they just want to have an SEC team in because they're too scared to leave one out, it's probably going to be Alabama. But like I said, the easy decision should be Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. It's going to get really interesting because regardless of what decision the committee decides, regardless of what the top 4 looks like, there are going to be 1 to 2 very irate fan bases that are pretty upset that they got left out. Who those fan bases are going to be, well, your guess is as good as mine, and we're going to have to wait until tomorrow to find out. But like I said, if I had a personal vote in ranking the top 4, I would go Michigan at number 1, I would go Washington at number 2, I would go Texas at number 3, and I would go Alabama at number 4. But unfortunately, I don't have a say, and what I think is going to happen is going to be Michigan, Washington, Florida State at 3, and then I think Alabama is going to get the edge, and I think they're going to be the team that rounds out the college football playoff. Doesn't it figure that the final year of the 4-team playoff is the most controversial and the craziest? Why couldn't we move to the 12-team playoff this year and avoid all of this chaos? Now, I'm sure once we have the 12-team playoff, there's going to be a lot of teams that feel they get left out, but at that point, I mean, come on, you're having 12 teams reach the playoff, there really shouldn't be any issues at all. So I'm really excited to see what the playoff committee does tomorrow, because again, whatever their decision is, a lot of people on social media and across the country are going to be extremely pissed. So what do you think the top 4 is going to look like tomorrow? Do you think Florida State is a guarantee? And if they're not, who between Alabama, Texas, and potentially Georgia do you think is deserving? Let's just say you're on the playoff committee tomorrow and you have to submit a top 4. Let me know in the comment section below what your top 4 would look like. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you love college football, this is definitely the place for you. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that confusing YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in my next video.